Hello, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. We're looking at oldest and best manuscripts, Matthew to Luke. And this is on brandpluck.com, wonderful Will Kinney. And so the true character of the so-called oldest and best manuscripts, part one, I'm just going to read a little bit of this article. Make some comments around it, fair use it. Thanks for being here. Do check out our other videos here on the channel. We're so grateful you're here. Many of you have been here for many, many years, and I constantly hear from you, and I'm so grateful. So God bless you. So we just all share a love for truth. So the usual mantra we hear today from those who promote the modern Vatican supervised text versions, like the ESV, NIV, NASB, NET, Holman, etc., is that they're based on the oldest and best manuscripts, the King James Version, along with all Reformation Bibles in all languages, added to the words of God from late manuscripts. As somebody jokingly said, they're 110% the Word of God. We've shown many videos how that's just demonstrably not true. The facts are that these so-called oldest and best are among the most corrupt and contradictory of manuscripts out there, even if the purported ages of Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are correct, which are probably not, especially in Sinaiticus' case. Even if they were, Burgon just eviscerated them over 125 years ago. They not only disagree with the vast majority of all Greek manuscripts, but also with each other, like Vaticanus and Sinaiticus don't agree amongst themselves in so many cases. A far more logical and consistent explanation for their old age is due to the fact they were recognized as being hopelessly corrupt and therefore were not used. That's why they didn't wear out. The Bibles in my house, of which there's several that we've worn out over the many years, been studying the Bible, they're retired. The ones that I rarely use because they're bad translations, I have them to compare, do videos with, on and on, look like mint. So, Fool and Knave. On page 1512, I found this very interesting. Of Codex Vaticanus, next to the Hebrews 1:3, the text contains an interesting marginal note. And if I was up more on my Greek, I would read it to you in Greek, but I'll do it in English. This translates as Fool and Knave. Leave the old reading and do not change it. This suggests that unauthorized changes to the text was a recognized problem in Scriptorium, where Codex Vaticanus was made. And also, in Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, you'll have hand one, hand this, hand that, The antiquity of these manuscripts is no indication of reliability, if in fact they are of antiquity, because a prominent church follower in Alexandria, Egypt, of all places, testified that manuscripts were already corrupt by the 3rd century. Let's read this. We're getting this from Bruce Metzger, The Text of the New Testament, Transmission, Corruption, and Restoration, 3rd edition, which I don't agree with that. I think there's always been the Word of God somewhere on planet Earth since the time of Moses on, when we've gone through reasons why, longevity of ages and all this before Moses. So Origen says this: the differences among the manuscripts of the Gospels have become great, either through the negligence of some copyist or through the perverse audacity of others, deliberate falsification, which some will say, why? I don't want to falsely attribute, but one of the main guys against King James said there's no evidence that the manuscripts of early church were ever changed. It's like, yeah, there's massive evidence, and this is one of them. They either neglect to check over what they've transcribed, or in the process of checking, they lengthen or shorten as they please. And as author Cleveland Cox has documented, being the expert he is from Cambridge, or was he, in the 1880s, it was almost always shortening, just like Satan did the thief when he was quoting Psalm 91 to Jesus. He took out a phrase. Origen is, of course, speaking of the manuscripts in the hometown of Alexandria, Egypt. By an Alexandrian church father's own admission, manuscripts in Alexandria 200 AD were already corrupt. So, and that's where Sinaiticus and the Vaticanus would purportedly come from. Seems like there was another thing I wanted to comment on. Maybe it'll come back to me. So the earliest manuscripts that provide distinguishable readings date to about 200 AD, such as P46, P66. These manuscripts come from Egypt, which origin said was corrupt, and are witnesses of the Alexandrian text type, if there be such an Alexandrian text type. I did want to say, in studying one of the manuscripts recently, did a little video. I don't know if we did the whole video on it. I think it was just part of another video, that one of the old papyri, it appears that the scribe didn't even know Greek. He was just another speaker, whether it was Demotic, like an Egyptian language, Bohairic, Sahidic or something, or Latin. And then he was just trying to transcribe the letters because he made errors that any Greek speaker would catch. However, the antiquity of these manuscripts is no indication of reliability, because a prominent church father in Alexandria testified that manuscripts were already corrupt by the 3rd century. And so undeniable proof of the ESV, NIV, NASB, NET, Jehovah's Witness, modern Catholic versions, or the New Vatican versions are seen in many places. And that's the thing, like the Jehovah's Witness New World Translation is going to agree far more with new translations than it is with Reformation text Bibles. And so the true character of Sinaiticus Vaticanus is seen here. Most of the other 5,000 New Testament textual differences between the King James Bible and modern Bible versions like the NASB, NIV, RSV, ESV, NET, Living, and others are the result of two manuscripts that purport to be from 350 AD. Sinaiticus, known as Aleph, and Vaticanus as V. As for the papyri manuscripts so highly vaunted by men like James White, they're a very mixed bag. They all come from the Alexandrian region in Egypt, most likely represent a localized text, and they frequently differ among themselves. So like, you've got Paul writing, Romans, Ephesians, Galatians, all of this, nothing there from Egypt. So P45, for example, agrees with Aleph, that's Sinaiticus, 19 times, Vaticanus, B, and we're going to refer to them as such from here on out, Aleph and B, and the Textus Receptus 32 times. So it's more in agreement with the Textus Receptus than Sinaiticus Vaticanus. P66 agrees with Aleph 14 times, Vaticanus 29 times, and the Textus Receptus 33 times. Now this can scarcely be overstated. They don't agree amongst themselves, and they'd still agree with the Textus Receptus like it was the main text type, and then they're trying to change it into Gnosticism or some other heresy. P75, which a lot of people think is a forgery, by the way, agrees with Aleph 9 times, B 33 times, and the Textus Receptus 29 times. P45, 66, and 75 together, when they agree with Aleph 4 times, B, Vaticanus 18 times, and the Textus Receptus 20 times. And then P45 and P66, when they agree together, they agree with Aleph 7 times, Vaticanus 3 times, and the Textus Receptus 8 times. And the above chart data taken from a survey of the researches into the Western text of the Gospel and Acts, Part 2, 1949-1969, by A.F.K. Klinge, K-L-I-J-N, in case you're interested in obtaining that reference somehow through Fetchbook or Abe or something. So Papyrus 45 contains excerpts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts. It's presently in the Chester Beatty Museum, Dublin, Ireland. By the way, on our Biblical Archaeology Today podcast, Steve Waldron on Spotify, we've seen who is Chester Beatty, who's John Rylands, the others, massive collectors, P66 contain excerpts of the Gospel of John. It's currently located at Cologne, Geneva, in the Bibliothèque Bodmer, like Martin Bodmer, of the Bodmer Papyri. Papyrus 75 contains excerpts of Luke and John, and it's at the same place of Bodmer. So these lately discovered manuscript fragments agree more frequently with Textus Receptus than they do with Westcott and Hort's favored Aleph and B. P45 thought to date from the 3rd century, P66, 200 AD, some date it much earlier than that. And P75 is dated from the beginning of the 3rd century, around 200. But more research has been coming out lately that affirms these papyri actually date to the 4th century. So Nicholas Lunn has recently done his own collations and tells us that P75 contains John 1:15 and disagrees with both Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, and agrees with the Byzantine text type in John 1:18, 4:31, 5:12, 8:41, 8:52, 9:11, 9:16, 9:17, 10:27, 10:29. Very important. Some of these, all the scriptures are important, but talking about doctrinal, things. Thus, an Alexandrian manuscript that is more than 100 years earlier and in the same family as Vaticanus and Sinaiticus preferred the Byzantine text type in these specific instances. P45 Chester Beatty Papyri contains Mark and disagrees with both Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, and not only disagrees with them, but agrees with the Byzantine text type in Mark 5:42, 6:2, 6:22, 6:41, 7:5, 7:6, 7:12, 7:29, 7:31, 7:32, 7:35, 8:28, 26, 8:36, 9:2, 9:6, 9:20, and 11:28. Thus, an Alexandrian manuscript is about 100 years earlier in the same family as Vaticanus, Sinaiticus, prefer the Byzantine text type in these instances. Now, I'm going to give you another reference here that's really good. For discussion of papyri P75, P66, P45, etc., and their Egyptian Gnostic sources, because Gnosticism was heavily concentrated in Egypt, we have tons of those documents, especially from maybe Oxyrhynchus and others. See Bridge to Babylon, Rome, Ecumenicism and the Bible, A Lamp in the Dark, Part 3, at the 209 mark and forward. And I really like those video series about A Lamp in the Dark. They're excellent. So, let's just read just a tiny bit more and then we'll stop. Regarding James White's statements that no one being influenced to try to corrupt the biblical text, 2 Corinthians 2:17 totally eviscerates that. White does not tell the reader about those in the early church who were concerned about corrupters of the word. Here are a couple of quotes to demonstrate that, but we're going to start with that tomorrow. So God bless. Thanks for being here. You can trust the Bible in English, King James Version. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.